The Tech It Up Talk podcast aspires to educate, inform, and inspire educators from teachers to school leaders on tips, tools, and resources to support the integration of technology into classroom instruction.
You ready? Here we go.
You're listening to Tech It Up Talk with Dr. Mac, your host with the most passion for supporting educators from teachers to school leaders with the integration of technology into instruction. In today's show, I have a classroom teacher who will be sharing her experience, her challenges, and best practices for integrating technology into kindergarten. That's right. Our little learners have leveled up this year, and with a huge push and major influence from the pandemic to start their beginnings and sharpening their saw with technology and learning. And I love speaking with teachers and learning from their experiences in the classroom. After all, this podcast is about supporting teachers and leaders with the end goal of supporting our students with positive outcomes and effective learning experiences. So, of course, the voice of a teacher is necessary as they are the backbone for preparing our students. And my guest today is an awesome educator who teaches kindergarten with a passion for making learning fun. She is entering into her 10th year in education and has enjoyed growing along with educational technology throughout her teaching journey. She has made it her mission to leverage technology and keep her students engaged and learning in ways that are pertinent to their lives. And hybrid teaching has inspired a new level of technological creativity for her in response to the demands of the 2021 school year. As a result, she has had the privilege of chairing the technology committee at her school. And in this role, she has realized that she enjoys not only teaching young students, but also supporting her colleagues to become more comfortable with technology. So I would like to give a warm welcome to my guest today, Miss Jordan Beal.
Hi, Dr. Mac. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so excited for you to be here. How are you today?
I'm doing good. It's Saturday. I'm freshly on summer break, so I'm actually feeling really good. How about you?
Oh, we just busy here. But so let's talk about, you're on summer break, which is great. I wish I was on a summer break. But if you had to choose one word to describe your year in teaching, what would it be?
That's a really good question. One word that would encapsulate my entire year this year in the pandemic of teaching would be enlightening. This year uncovered so much for me. And, you know, like you said, I've been teaching for 10 years and you think, oh, I'm a pro at this, and you kind of get settled in your ways. And this year really shook up a lot, but really showed me a lot. So I would have to say enlightening.
All right. I think it's been an enlightening year for all of us. And I'm glad you said that, because the goal of this episode is for us to discuss your experiences and your challenges that you may have faced and overcome, and best practices for using technology. And as we know, COVID-19 has had a major impact in education, and so many educators have had to rapidly adjust their instructional practices from face-to-face instruction to virtual instruction to hybrid learning and teaching. And so I want you to know that your knowledge and your experience in the classroom can and will help other educators to enhance their instructional practices and their systems in the classroom. And so what I would like for you to do is just start with sharing with us your experience in transitioning into your instruction this year.
I think like most other teachers in the 2019-20 year, it was the 2019-20 year, we were just sailing along, doing what we had always done, and COVID hit us like a ton of bricks, especially my school. We happened to be on spring break when the shutdown happened, so we didn't take anything home, we didn't pack any packets, we didn't do anything. We just woke up one day and couldn't get back. So we had to change on a dime. And we started with Schoology. No. Even before Schoology, we started with Flipgrid. That was the first thing that we rushed to, because we knew that it was a way to put up some content that our kids could interact with whenever they had time, if they had access, and just keep some semblance of learning going. And then we did that for about a couple of weeks, and we saw great numbers, engagement every day, kids responding with their versions of what we were doing with household items and things like that. And then in about 2 weeks, our district responded with training all the teachers on Schoology. And we got Schoology going. and we got asynchronous, very short, but asynchronous assignments going on. And that's how we finished out the school year that was interrupted. And then we went into this next school year. They gave us more in-depth training on, we got a new curriculum. So we got trained on the new curriculum, and we started off completely virtual. All of our students logged on to Schoology for asynchronous instruction and to small groups, and that was on Google Meets for a short synchronous instruction. It wasn't mandatory, but we really encouraged kids to come. So we just kind of were always changing. That was our experience. We were just trying to, at very first, we were just trying to meet the kids with whatever we had. We were literally making math assignments with sponges from the bathroom. Like, we just tried to give them something. And then we got into more of a flow of things. And then we started off fully virtual. And then the kids that wanted to come back came back. I was still virtual fully the whole first 3 quarters. And then in the very last quarter, I got to come back hybrid. So it was just ever changing all year.
Wow. And so what were some of the challenges or roadblocks that you faced in transitioning?
There were so many. It was like the path for me to come into technology started well before we had to come in. So I was over the academic achievement committee that year. And so my job was to kind of support kids in academic achievement in ways outside of the classroom. So one of the big goals that I had were these academic nights. And the first one we did a popcorn and PJs night. We had all the parents come out in their PJs and the kids come out in their PJs. And we did kind of like the same kind of hands-on games that we do in the classroom. We gave them little samples of it to do it at home, and we taught the parents how we teach these things in like letter achievement or letter sound correspondence or math or supertizing. We would just make it in hands-on ways, and we'd send it home. We'd teach the parents how to do it. And my bright idea was the kids love to do these things on iPads and computers. So I thought, oh my gosh, let's do a technology and color night. So about 1 week before the shutdown, we didn't know it was coming. So I just thought, well, our kids love technology so much. I'm going to do a technology and color night, and all the parents are going to come out and they're going to learn about all the kids' favorite apps, ABC, Starfall, all the things that the district has subscriptions to, because they can be continuing this learning at home on their little phones or whatever. So then I invited all the parents out, and we had really low turnout, and I didn't know why. I didn't get hurt my feelings so bad. And so we had planned so much and we had really low turnout, but it was because I didn't realize that the parents, they didn't have technology at home. They didn't know how to use technology. A lot of them were intimidated by technology. So I had that blind spot thinking because my son may have an iPad and knows how to use and all that stuff, I didn't have the connection with the community to know that may not be the case for the population that I serve. So that was a really big challenge. And so that was something that I think we all had to overcome once we had only technology. And so one big challenge that we had was the technology and the fear of it, and the lack of, we didn't have a lot of internet in the homes in my community. So we had to give out hotspots. We had to get them first Chromebooks. That's what we sent home first. And then my district got a partnership with Apple. So we collect all the Chromebooks and we sent the kids iPads. And so even that change was really hard for our parents. And just basically training the parents and helping them to learn while I had grace for what they didn't know. And they would sometimes become frustrated, and I had to be, a listening ear and encourage them. I know it's hard, but you'll get it. And then in turn, they became that for me when I would put up a link on Schoology and it wouldn't work. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, guys. I don't know what I clicked. They're like, it's okay, Miss Peter. We know you're doing your best. So we had that community that we had to create because of those challenges. But there were many.
So were your kids on different devices, or were they so that you have to also manage having the iPads and the Chromebook?
I sure did. So I would say in my class specifically, I would say maybe 3 kids had very old desktops that they were using. So sometimes they would give them issues of just being very old and very slow, like load up speeds and stuff like that. And I would say about The rest of my kids, I would say about 80% came and got the Chromebooks and then gave them back. So at the end, they had 80% had iPads. There was about, I'd say 22% that kept, not 22, what am I doing with my math? 18% that kept the Chromebooks. So I had Chromebooks, iPads, and then very old computers and shaky hotspots and Wi-Fi. So it was a challenge.
Right. Because the prior year, how were you guys set up with technology? Was it just classroom tech, or they weren't necessarily one-to-one?
It was definitely not one-to-one. And what we did have were every classroom had about 5 Chromebooks. And so our kids were pretty proficient on the Chromebooks. So when those went home, it was pretty seamless for the kids to use the apps and Clever and the things that they had already learned to do the previous year in their pre-K year or were already doing in class. But it definitely was not one-to-one. So they didn't get to spend as much time with them as they were required to do this year. Right. And the parents had never seen them because they never went. So that was hard.
Yeah, and you have a younger group. And so, I think it was even harder because this is probably their first time being pushed and thrust into having to use it outside of probably their parents' cell phone in a more meaningful way for learning. And so what are some ways that you use technology with your kinders?
Well, inside the classroom, we were using it a lot. So we would put them on Clever, and then there's an app called Myon where they were required to read every day. And it has just a huge library of books, and they can choose like the subject they want to read about. It will even do the leveled readers so that you could assign books to your kids for practice. We would use Starfall, that I think every pre-K and kinder teacher loves Starfall. We use that for calendar, and they can explore letter sounds and things on there. And what were you using before the pandemic? I want to say mostly Clever, Myon, Brain Pop, those kind of apps that you kind of use to supplement what you're doing in class. And the way that we were using it before, the kids needed a lot of instruction. So it was more teacher-led than student-led. And now we know better. But back then, that's what we were doing.
Well, look, I'm excited because a lot of people are learning to know better. And, I've been in this role for quite some time. So, I got excited when the pandemic hit only because of that component of the work that I was doing prior to it was a little more challenging. But now this kind of like thrust us full throttle. And so I'm excited to see where we go. Well, my next question is what systems did you have in place to kind of help support the process? Because especially with having multiple devices, having parents at home who may not been able to support their student the same way as another parent could, or the way you could in the classroom. And so what are some things you had in place to support your class?
So in my class, the biggest thing that I needed to do to support my students was to train their parents and to support their parents. So what I did first is I centralized where they could find me, and I put everybody on Class Dojo. Some years, in years prior, I would get maybe 80% of the kids' parents to get on, or like very close at 90%. But this year was really important for me to get every parent in one place where we could all correspond. So I made sure that 100% of the parents got on Dojo. And another thing that I forgot to tell you earlier is the way that our school was set up was that kids would come into the classroom and out of the classroom every quarter. So let's say you tried in person and then came out, you would get dropped into an in-class teacher's class or a virtual teacher's class a lot. So our kids were moving very fluidly throughout their learning model. So it was important to me that I had Dojo set up so that all of my parents, whether you just got in now or whether you've been in the beginning, would have access to all of my tutorials, all of my videos. They would have access to the parents who have been already here, and we would be a community. So that was one system that I set up, is making sure that they had a way to reach me any time of day, and that if they couldn't find me, they could post the question on the Dojo stories, and then another parent might be able to answer it. So we set up that, and I also made like lots of videos for parents to reference. And so Screencastify was my best friend. And what's the other one that I use? Loom, where you can screen record. Yes. That one, when they made it to where teachers could record very long videos on it, that was a game changer. So we definitely made a lot of tutorial videos for the parents, and just set up a community where if you hit a roadblock and a link isn't working, you can message me and I'll fix it. Or you can message me and I'll call you, and we'll get on maybe Google Meets, and I can either show you exactly where to click and share my screen, or we'll figure it out together. That was the best thing that I ever did, is just basically became available to my parents.
And that's very important, especially when they're still having to learn, adjust. And I know at the beginning, even myself as a parent, because my daughter was in kinder during this process, and when we were all virtual, trying to manage my time when trying to get work done and trying to also help her at the same time. And so those parent supports were definitely helpful to kind of help get her to where she needed to be, and also give me a little freedom to do the work that I needed to get done as well. And so speaking of that, what are some things that worked well for you during this time?
Oh, so many things. So the best things that work for me is I'm used to being a really fun teacher that's like, if nothing else grades are important to me and mastery is important to me, but I believe that the way you're going to get there is to keep them engaged. So what worked for me is transitioning all of the games or gamified things that we would do in class to online. So my kids' favorite thing to do is game shows. They just love it. They really love to be a contestant. They're so competitive. And so what worked for me is like putting things on Nearpod and first teaching a lesson, but then giving them a chance to like work out their skills and problem solving against their peers. And there's a feature on Nearpod where you can do a time to climb. And so the kids, they pick a little character and they climb up the mountain higher if you answer your questions correctly and quickly. So you have to have a really deep level of understanding to get to the top of the mountain. And you want to beat the rest of your friends up there. So that worked. They love Nearpod. Boom cards. That's been super integral with like assessments. So it's like an app where you, like in the classroom, we would put cards in front of them, and then it's kind of like a drill where, you'll put an apple on the screen. You'll tell them, okay, what letter or what letter makes the A sound like apple, and they find the letter, they click it. But that's really hard to do when you're doing virtual learning. Mm-hmm. And so what I would do is I would just drop the link, create it, assign it, drop the link, and then my kids would do it for 5 minutes and just click out of the link with Ms. Beal and then go do all your boom cards. And then I have so much assessment data of who knew this one, who took 2 tries at it, so I know if they're shaky. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't like just tell them no, keep going. It does teach them the right answer, but it also, gives me the data that I need. And right. So what else worked really good for me? Clips from Apple. They all eventually got those Apple iPads. And so they had been all year watching me do, in the asynchronous time videos of like, hey guys, it's me, Miss Beal. And I would talk about whatever I'm talking about. That is my pre-K student. Apple trained us on clips, and my kids have been watching me do YouTube videos, and I try to, jazz them up, and hey guys, it's me, Mrs. Beal, and stuff like that. And so I started noticing that in my kids' responses to my videos, they would say things like, hey, Miss Beal, it's me, such and such, such and such. So I knew that they would even say like, welcome to my YouTube page. They really felt like they were on YouTube just responding to me.
Wow.
So yeah. So when we got access to clips, we learned how to teach kids to make their own YouTube videos with even slang transitions and things like that. And so we trained the kids on that, and it really helped them with their expression and their ability to explain what they had learned and to retell stories and do it like maybe once I went hybrid, my in-class kids would go to their little corner, make their video. And so I'd be working with a whole other group of kids, and they'd be telling me what they learned. So it was good in assessment and expression. And I think slides was paramount. PowerPoint was great. I could go on and on. There was so
Wow. Well, you said that you like to make learning fun. Tell me about this game show. How did that kind of go?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So it sounds fancy when I say game show, but it's really not fancy on the creative side. So if you think about like on Wheel of Fortune, and then Vanna White seems so glamorous. She's going over there, she's touching the letter, she's flipping around. But what she's really doing is just flipping over a rectangle and showing you a letter. And so I do the same things in my classroom where we'll be talking about the sounds. Like, so at some point in the year, we want the kids to be able to tell you that are the sounds or the phonemes that make up the word ham, right? So I'll put up a picture on the screen of a ham, and there'll be 3 boxes underneath. And in PowerPoint, I'm just going in and putting 3 squares over that and touching it and making it disappear. But the kids love it. And so if they're at home and I'm doing this with them, I'm doing it on my screen. I'm sharing my screen and doing it. But in the classroom, it's even more powerful because I've got my giant Promethean board, and I'm like a game show host. I'm really just hamming it up for them, and they love it. So we've done game shows to learn what we want to know. We've done it with Go Fish. I do that on PowerPoint. I do it with boom cards, because if you do that same, like the assessment technique, but you do it on the board whole group so everyone can learn, they feel like that's a game show. Nearpod, they feel like contestants in a racing game show. I just always tell, and I make my own little theme music. I'll just tell, okay, guys, let's do name that letter. And they love it. It gets them engaged and they love it.
So I like the fact that you're bringing the joy factor and leveraging the technology to kind of enhance the joy factor. And even those little simple things, like, sometimes people we PowerPoint people to death, but if we repurpose the use of PowerPoint and how we're using it, it can really change the dynamics of the classroom. And so I love that your students Vanna White.
I try to be.
Okay, well, let's kind of move on. So do you feel like the pandemic has had a positive impact on your instruction?
I definitely do. And I know that it's challenging for everybody. So it could have at some point been stressful, especially to some of my colleagues, that it doesn't come second nature to them. But for me, I feel like while everyone else may be looking forward to going back to, I wish I could go back to, or I can't wait till we go back to the way things were. In my classroom, we're not ever going to go back. So, you know what I mean? It taught me so much about the ways that kids can take ownership and agency over their own technology. So I obviously wasn't giving them enough credit before. So I'm never going to underestimate my kids in that way again. It's taught me so much about the way to automate and then provide more access to education. And so we'll never go back to, I missed Tuesday, so I missed that whole lesson, So in my classroom now, I've had kids who, unfortunately, maybe their family got sick, and, in this day and age, you can't really come to school with a cold or anything. So we'll have missed 3 whole days. You come back on Thursday, and we may be in more of a review form of the lesson. We're not really in the introduction phase. So they essentially would be more lost, or I have to lose teaching time reteaching it. But I have so many videos that I've created now on that lesson that I can put you, instead of having to read aloud for your whole class again, I can sit you down, you rewatch that video for 10 minutes, you come back, now you never miss that lesson. So it's really changed the way that I do things, and hopefully it's changed the mindset of all of us so that we can, give kids a little more credit and a little more access.
Well, it's definitely music to my ears. And so let's talk about the teachers because not everyone may have the same feeling as you with the technology piece. And so what advice would you have for other teachers who may have been frustrated quite often through this time period?
What I would say for those teachers is you can find support. So what doesn't come easy to me, there's somebody in my school that it does come easy to them, and they can give me some tips and some pointers. So I found myself this year helping a lot of my teacher friends just to learn the basics of PowerPoint, or things that you would think that you don't need to teach somebody, so the district may not designate training on it. Mm-hmm. If you have relationships in your school, just ask somebody, because somebody knows how to do it. So for the teachers that it's just asking a lot to upload to Schoology and create this video and do this and then do this, you can lean on your teacher friends who already have it. Because I found that this year, especially with organizations and in podcasts like yours and people like you that don't mind sharing, there's so many untapped resources in education. Mm-hmm. And, by nature of what we do, all of us are prone to want to share what we know. This is what we do. We're all, in education. So if you reach out to a person in your school or in an organization, or listen to a podcast or look on Pinterest, the information is there. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason to feel intimidated or like you'll never get it, because you will, and people will help you.
All right. Well, I love it. And thank you so much for sharing. We're going to move on to our next segment of the show, which is one of my favorites. I like to call Get Your Tech Together. So in this segment, I would like for you to share some must-have tools you think that other teachers or educators, leaders should have in their digital toolbox?
Okay, so I think that the best things to be in your toolbox, if you specifically are an early childhood educator, would be boom cards. Those are awesome. That's a great resource. Nearpod is great. I leaned on that really heavily. YouTube is, a lot of us find like the Blippi videos on YouTube to support our science lessons and things like that. But there are so many teachers who are teaching the curriculum that you're teaching in a different way than you. So sometimes I just go on there and I look at different teachers' videos and the cool things that they're doing with it, and I find great inspiration there. So I think that those are really good websites where you could get started. And another thing that you could do is start a tech committee. At my school, I was the chair along with one of my best friends of the tech committee, and she was on the pre-K side and I was on the kinder side, and we don't have our tech specs anymore. So the rest of the staff just kind of knew to come to us with all their questions. So if you don't have a tech committee, you should start one. If you do have one, you should join it, because that's where all the technology is. Is there anything else that I think is good? Oh yes, I think that in this upcoming year, I don't think that we're going to see technology go away. So the best thing you can do is train your students and their families on the technology on the front end, and then that way you can have those automated procedures for the whole rest of the school year. You just got to put the time and the grace into training them first, and then it'll flow from there.
Yeah, I like that, because I tell a lot of teachers, because sometimes the frustration comes because they want it to work automatically, but you really got to scaffold and build those opportunities to learn the technology tool in conjunction with the instruction, and purposely and be intentional with it, versus just wanting to use it and think it's going to work effectively, especially if it's something new. And so I think creating systems and also building in time for learning opportunities, you can do small chunks at a time, especially with the younger students, because I know it's been more challenging for our teachers of early childhood and kinder than it has been for our students who may be secondary with the technology piece. And so, but it's not like all is lost. There's still possibility there, and so much growth that they can do. And like you said earlier, just underestimating the ability of your students, with what we may be comfortable with. And so I really appreciate that. You share definitely some great tools for other teachers to go check out. So I hope they can go check that out and add to their digital toolbox and see how they can leverage those tools as well. And so we're going to end with our Tech Smackdown, top tips for other educators. And I want them to listen to this podcast and then come back and share with me which tip you think Ms. Beal gave was the best. You can connect with me on Tech It Up Talk, Twitter and Instagram at Tech It Up Talk. Jordan, if you don't mind, go ahead and sharing your top tips to walk away with.
Okay, I wrote them down. All right, so top tips: get a tech committee, join a tech committee. Number 2, get on Nearpod, boom cards, and slides, and make game shows. They will change your life in your classroom. Game shows are great, and the kids love to be competitive. And number 3, just train and support everybody, just like Dr. Mack said, in small chunks, and centralize the location. So if we still have Schoology or Google Classrooms, continue even once you're in the classroom to put all your links and your little tabbies and icons in one place. That way little kids just have one thing to go and click for, and that is the best thing you can do to make sure that they can get on 27 apps very quickly and easily.
Oh, but thank you so much, Jordan, for joining us today. And I want us to end with how our listeners can connect with you and become a part of your network and learn more from you as a teacher of our little learners.
Oh, you can find me every place at thekindergoddess.com. It's like kindergarten, but kindergoddess. And so that's my website. The Kinder Goddess is my blog. I'm on Instagram I think that one is just Kinder Goddess or the Kinder Goddess. So they'll be somewhere you can find them. But you can always find me at the Kinder Goddess. I'm working on putting up more things onto my Teachers Pay Teachers store, so you can check those out. That's also at the Kinder Goddess. So if you look for me, you'll likely find me.
All right. The Kinder Goddess has spoken. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been a pleasure, and I hope I can have you on at another time.
Oh, I'd love to be back. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Tech It Up Talk podcast with Dr. Mac, your host with the most passion for supporting educators on using and implementing technology. Be sure to connect with me on the Tech It Up Talk Facebook page and Twitter and Instagram at Tech It Up Talk or at Dr. J.E. McDonald. Now, I know teching may not always be easy, but it sure is fun.